Hello and welcome to this overview of the User Experience Painpoint Canvas. Detailed instructions can be found on the InnoSee website and a link will be provided at the end of this video. So what do we mean by user experience? So fundamentally this is the customer doing an action and hitting the front stage of your organization. This could be either the software or the support teams. The canvas's purpose is to be a strategic input. Although you could record a lot of detail, you're looking for the big issues. These are the things that you think need to be solved. So you could pre-filter your problems up front so that only the most important issues end up on this canvas. The canvas itself consists of 4 sections, starting with software, usability and accessibility, organizational touchpoints, onboarding and migration, and software quality. Starting with usability, what we mean by this is fault tolerance, how errors are avoided, how well they are handled. This is very important. If an error is not well handled, at its worst, it could cause that customer to need to contact your support teams. This lowers customer satisfaction and increased costs for yourself. Learnability, the speed at which you can achieve a task for the first time. This is most important for new users and new companies that have bought your product if you're in a B2B environment. Be very careful here with new features as well. Aim to make them as learnable as possible, as all customers will be impacted by this. Memorability. When returning to a task, how easy is it to pick it back up again? Pay particular attention with those with a very slow cycle time. For example, if one is run annually. Efficiency. How quickly experienced users can perform a task after they've learnt it. So even though you could use things like wizards to get somebody started, these could be very slow for an experienced user and cause dissatisfaction. User satisfaction, overall, how customers feel. And there are 3 points to this. First of all, features with the lowest usage. Although this looks like it's an immediate red flag if a feature has low usage, be careful where you have a few experienced users that have a lot of value in the features that you've got. You may find that sections of your user base do really want the feature that you have, so don't automatically assume that you should get rid of those or improve them. Which areas of the product are hardest to use? Again, this leans on efficiency and learnability. If they are very hard to use for an experienced user, then you can guarantee they're going to be difficult for a new user. Which areas of the product don't do what you need? This is perhaps the most important question. If everyone comes back and says, this doesn't solve my problem, it doesn't work well, pay particular attention to that feature. Next, we'll move to accessibility. This considers aspects like visual impairment or problems with motor functions. Before you start, make sure that you've considered who you are catering for. There are professional organisations that deal with this, including charities in the UK, that can help you ensure that your accessibility is done well. And I would strongly recommend contacting them rather than trying to do this with limited knowledge. Other issues here that can present are seizures. So people have things like photosensitive epilepsy, and you need to be careful with the way that you use graphics. Cognitive issues, so they have problems with memory or problem solving. Motor issues we covered before, issues with physical devices like mice. Deaf or hard of hearing people with auditory disability. Visual doesn't necessarily mean blind, it could also mean poor vision. So looking at organizational touchpoints, one of the techniques for understanding a customer's view of the world is called the customer journey map. And you can see an example here, and this one considers the sign up and security clearance process. Obviously this is just made up. At the top you can see the user action, what the user is actually trying to do. Touch points, where we discussed earlier about the front stage. These could be either the manual processes where they're working with your teams, or they could be software. The steps at the high level that they're undertaking. Key performance indicators if you wish to measure those. You don't have to do this if you have a particularly important area of the system. For example, in this case, we want to understand how long it takes to check progress for security. You may wish to add key performance indicators to these. And then at the bottom, you can see the pain points where you can record what's gone wrong. What you'll find with the pain points is that if you can quantify them, particularly in terms of impact, this is really, really good. So here you can see the first one, errors on failed scan leads to 140 calls to support per month. I could quantify this further and look at the cost of the support team. If I think about the manual processes or failure recovery errors, I can look at the manual processes along the top where the touch points are, and I can consider, should I be replacing those? Are they expensive? Are they needed? And then the pain points cover failure recovery or other issues, and those are at the bottom. On to onboarding and migration. Let's start with onboarding. So onboarding, if we want to make this simpler, we can improve the product's learnability. If the product's learnability is really poor, then it can tend to result in a lot of onboarding. In fact, sometimes your organization will be running expensive training courses at their own costs or doing setup for customers. All of this is very inefficient. Ideally, you should improve the progress that you show to customers. So particularly for B2B or high value customers, you should think about, how do I show the progress that the onboarding is making rather than it drifting? If, for example, your onboarding is taking 3 months and looks like it's never ending, this can even lead to customers cancelling contracts. Monitor the customer's progress, not just your own. In fact, the customer will probably be part of your onboarding plan. Their people need training, for example. You need to make sure that they've reached a certain level of skill. And then improve onboarding with partners. So this means having a single point of contact in the organization who's working with you to handle the onboarding. Understand the goals of this partner. Why did they buy this software in the first place? What was the purpose of this product? And then set completion deadlines where you can report on. All of this will help. Fundamentally, onboarding is a cost. So if you can reduce this by making your software more usable, then do so. Let's consider migration. First of all, some custom migrations can be very expensive. So consider the value to the customer. For example, if you bring every single piece of their data across from an old system, do they really need that? What is the cost to your organization? How much is this custom migration going to cost you versus the revenue you're getting for this person? And a partial migration is an option here. So for example, maybe they can keep their old system running and you can transfer just 6 months worth of data and keep them going for a while. Data migration offers benefits to a customer and the organization. So this is automated data migration rather than manual. Reduction in human data entry errors. Imagine somebody rekeying lots of information, they're going to make mistakes. The quality of data can be improved during the migration as well. So data completeness, you can look for things that are missing, for example, date of births or addresses. Data cleanliness, you can identify corrupt or inaccurate records whilst you're doing the migration. And then finally, data compliance, ensuring data meets legal and regulatory requirements. By improving the data during the data migration, this can solve a lot of problems as you go forward with a new customer. Software quality can have a major impact on the customer, and you can see there are 6 aspects listed here, including security and compatibility. Quality should be a senior management responsibility. In fact, quality should be considered a culture. Prevention over inspecting and fixing, so always look to catch errors rather than let them loose into live. This reduces the cost overall as the feedback loops are very slow. Imagine finding a bug with someone sitting next to you versus it going out to a major client and then being reported through support teams, going back to your development teams, going back to your test teams. You can imagine the additional cost there. So building quality in is an important aspect here. Phil Crosby, one of the leaders in the earlier 1980s around quality, basically studied where organizations fail. And you can see some of the anti-patterns he highlighted. So there is always something wrong with the product. It's one of the issues when you haven't got a good focus on quality. They need a follow-up service to correct problems. So you're creating teams or you're creating services specifically to handle quality issues. They don't have a performance standard defined. Like, at what level of quality do you need to meet? In software, there are a lot of tools that can give you benchmarks about how good you are. They don't know the cost of their poor quality. In other words, how much does it cost you to be bad? If, for example, you are spending 3 weeks on development and then 3 weeks on fixing, and then another 3 weeks when it hits live, sorting out customer issues, the cost of that is significant. And this is a really good business case for improving quality. Management does not accept responsibility for quality. In other words, it's somebody else's fault. It's your development team's fault, it's your test team's fault, and so on. Again, quality is a senior management responsibility, and the senior management should work with the teams in order to help them improve it. Outside of this, quality has a major impact on customers. So, for example, if your software is not performant, this can be very, very troublesome for customers. And that ends the walkthrough. If you'd like detailed instructions, you can see the link here. And there's a lot more information on the website.